I knew I'd never make it home that night. The feeling hit me the moment I walked into the office that Monday morning. Not a thought, not a worry, but a certainty that settled into my bones like ice water. I stood in the elevator going up to the 14th floor where I'd worked for 3 years as a data analyst, and I just knew with absolute clarity that I wouldn't be going home after my shift ended at 6. My name is Cole Brennan, and I'm not someone who believes in premonitions or gut feelings or any of that supernatural stuff. I'm a numbers guy. I deal in facts and data and provable outcomes. But standing in that elevator with my coffee in one hand and my laptop bag in the other, I felt something I'd never experienced before. A deep, unshakable knowledge that today was different, that something was coming, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The elevator dinged, and I stepped out into the familiar gray carpeted hallway of Meridian Analytics. Everything looked exactly the same as it did every other Monday. The receptionist, Ashley, was at her desk typing away with her headset on. The break room door was propped open, and I could hear the coffee maker gurgling. Down the hall, I could see my cubicle in the sea of identical workspaces, my jacket still hanging on the back of my chair from Friday afternoon. Nothing was out of place. Nothing felt wrong, but that certainty stayed with me like a weight pressing down on my chest. I sat down at my desk and booted up my computer, going through the same morning routine I'd done 1,000 times before. Check emails, review the weekend reports, start pulling data for the quarterly analysis my boss wanted by Wednesday. My coworker Dimitri rolled his chair over to my cube around 9 and asked if I wanted to grab lunch from the taco truck later. I said sure, even though I wondered if I'd still be here at lunchtime. The thought came automatically, and I pushed it away because it was ridiculous. Of course I'd be here at lunch. Where else would I be? But the feeling persisted, growing stronger as the morning wore on. I kept catching myself looking at the clock, watching the minutes tick by like I was counting down to something. At 10:30, my phone buzzed with a text from my girlfriend Nina asking what time I'd be home. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, probably the usual time, around 6:30. The lie felt heavy in my fingers as I hit send. Why was I lying? I didn't know anything for certain. This was just anxiety, maybe stress from the upcoming deadline, nothing more. But even as I tried to rationalize it, that bone-deep certainty remained unchanged. Around 11, my boss Leonard called me into his office. He was a nervous guy in his 50s who wore the same 3 ties on rotation and always had coffee breath. I grabbed my notepad and headed to his corner office, expecting notes about the quarterly report or maybe complaints about last week's presentation to the clients. Instead, he closed the door behind me and gestured for me to sit down with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Cole, I need to talk to you about something sensitive," he started, adjusting his glasses the way he always did when he was uncomfortable. "There's been an issue flagged in the system. Some irregularities in data access logs from your terminal." My stomach dropped. What kind of irregularities? Leonard pulled up something on his computer and turned the monitor so I could see. Rows of login data, timestamps, file access records. Someone's been accessing classified client files after hours using your credentials. The IT security team noticed it last Thursday during a routine audit. They've been monitoring since then, and it's happened 3 more times over the weekend. I stared at the screen, my brain trying to process what he was showing me. Those were my login credentials, my employee ID, but I hadn't been in the office since Friday at 6. I'd spent the weekend at Nina's apartment helping her paint her bedroom. "That wasn't me," I said, hearing how defensive I sounded. "I haven't logged in remotely all week. I was with my girlfriend all weekend. She can verify that." Leonard nodded slowly, like he'd expected this answer. "I believe you, Cole, but the problem is, someone is using your access to look at files they shouldn't have access to. Client financial data, proprietary algorithms, stuff that's way above your clearance level. The company has to take this seriously. We've got protocols for potential security breaches." He explained that IT was going to conduct a full investigation, that my computer would need to be imaged and analyzed, that I might need to sit down with the security team and possibly with law enforcement if they determined there was criminal activity involved. In the meantime, my network access was being temporarily suspended pending the investigation. I could stay at my desk and work on non-digital tasks, but I couldn't log into any systems or access any files until this was resolved. I walked back to my cubicle feeling numb, that earlier certainty now mixed with a sick dread. This was it. This was why I wasn't going home tonight. Not because something would happen to me physically, but because my entire life was about to be turned upside down by an accusation I couldn't defend against. Dimitri noticed something was wrong immediately and rolled his chair over, his voice low. "Everything okay? You look like you saw a ghost." I wanted to tell him, but Leonard had specifically said not to discuss this with other employees until the investigation was complete. So I just shook my head and said I wasn't feeling well, which was true enough. My hands were shaking and my mouth tasted like copper. Around noon, 2 people from IT showed up at my desk with a cart and started disconnecting my computer tower. They were polite but efficient, bagging the equipment and labeling everything while other employees pretended not to stare. I heard whispers starting already, the office rumor mill spinning up. By the end of the day, everyone would assume I was getting fired or had done something criminal. Dimitri asked again if I was okay, and I couldn't meet his eyes. After IT left with my computer, I just sat at my empty desk, staring at the clean rectangle of space where my monitor had been. My phone buzzed with another text from Nina, asking if I wanted to pick up Thai food on the way home. I didn't respond, because I didn't know what to say. How do you explain that you're being investigated for something you didn't do? That your life is unraveling in real time? That you knew somehow this morning that today would be the day everything changed? I tried calling my best friend Victor around 1, needing someone to talk to who wasn't connected to work. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again 30 minutes later with the same result. I sent a text asking him to call me back when he could, that it was important, but got no response. The afternoon crawled by with excruciating slowness. I sat at my desk pretending to review paper files while anxiety churned in my gut. At 3, Leonard called me back to his office. This time, there were 2 other people in the room. A woman in a business suit who introduced herself as Patricia Valdez from corporate HR, and a man in khakis and a polo who said his name was Glenn Fuller from the security division. They asked me to sit down and close the door. Patricia started by explaining this was a formal interview as part of the security investigation, that everything said would be documented, and that I had the right to have an attorney present if I wanted one. The word attorney made my heart start pounding harder. Do I need an attorney? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. That's entirely up to you, Glenn said, his expression neutral. We're just trying to understand what happened here. Walk us through your activities over the past week. I went through it day by day. Monday through Friday, I came to work, did my job, left around 6 each evening. Saturday morning, I drove to Nina's apartment around 10. We spent the day painting her bedroom, ordered pizza for dinner, watched a movie. Sunday, we went to the farmer's market, came back and meal prepped for the week. I left around 8 to go home and get ready for work Monday. Glenn took notes while I talked, his pen scratching across the paper. When I finished, he looked up and asked, "Did you give anyone access to your login credentials? Maybe someone who needed to grab a file after hours? Something innocent like that?" I shook my head. Never. I don't even write my password down. It's just in my head. Patricia leaned forward slightly. Cole, I want to be very clear about the seriousness of this situation. The files that were accessed using your credentials contained extremely sensitive client information. If that information was stolen or sold to competitors, we're talking about millions of dollars in damages. The company will pursue both civil and criminal charges against whoever is responsible. The words hit me like a physical blow. Criminal charges. I could feel sweat forming at my hairline despite the aggressive air conditioning. I didn't do this, I said, hearing the desperation creeping into my voice. I don't know how someone got my credentials, but I swear I didn't access those files. I didn't even know half those files existed until Leonard showed me this morning. Glenn asked more questions. Had I clicked on any suspicious emails recently? Had I used my work computer for personal browsing? Had I logged into the company network from any public Wi-Fi locations? I answered each question as honestly as I could, but I could tell from their expressions they weren't convinced. The interview lasted almost an hour. When it finally ended, Patricia told me I was being placed on immediate administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. I needed to collect my personal items from my desk, turn in my badge and keycard, and leave the building. Security would escort me out. The words felt surreal, like they were happening to someone else. I'd worked here for 3 years without a single problem, and now I was being escorted out like a criminal. Back at my desk, I packed my few personal items into a box, while Glenn stood a respectful distance away. A framed photo of me and Nina from our trip to the coast last summer. A coffee mug my mom had given me for my birthday. A small succulent plant that was barely alive. Everything else belonged to the company. Dimitri caught me as I was heading to the elevator with my box of stuff, and Glenn trailing behind. What the hell is happening, man? I couldn't explain with Glenn right there, so I just shook my head. I'll call you later. The elevator ride down felt longer than the one going up that morning. Glenn rode down with me in silence, then walked me through the lobby to the front doors. I handed over my badge and key card at the security desk, and just like that, I was unemployed. Standing on the sidewalk outside the building where I'd spent 40 hours a week for the past 3 years, I felt completely untethered. It was only 4:30 in the afternoon. I'd been right this morning. I wasn't going home at my usual time. I wasn't going home as the same person who'd left this morning. Everything had changed, just like I'd somehow known it would. I sat in my car in the parking garage for a long time, just staring at the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with a call from Nina, and I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't talk to her yet, couldn't explain what had just happened. I needed time to process, to figure out what to do next. Finally, I started the engine and drove, not toward home, but just away, needing to move, needing to think. I ended up at a coffee shop across town that I'd never been to before, somewhere anonymous where no one would know me. I ordered a black coffee I didn't want and sat in the corner booth staring at my phone. I needed to call Victor again, needed to talk to someone about what was happening. But when I pulled up his contact, I hesitated. Something was nagging at me, some detail I couldn't quite place. I opened my laptop using the coffee shop's Wi-Fi and searched for my own name plus my company name, curious if anything would come up. The results were normal at first, just my LinkedIn profile and some old college athletics records from when I ran track. But then I saw something strange, a post on a programming forum from 3 days ago. Someone with the username BrennanC85 asking detailed questions about network security protocols and how to bypass two-factor authentication at large companies. The questions were specific, technical, exactly the kind of information someone would need to hack into a corporate system. My birth year is 1985, and my last name is Brennan. The coincidence felt too big to ignore. I clicked through to the user's profile and found more posts going back several weeks. Questions about data encryption, corporate VPN access, how to cover digital tracks. Every post was time-stamped late at night or early morning, the kind of hours when someone might be planning something they didn't want anyone to know about. I took screenshots of everything, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone steady. Someone was setting me up. Someone who knew my name, my birth year, enough about my company's security systems to ask the right questions. Someone who had access to my login credentials and was using them to steal data while making sure the trail led back to me. I tried to think through who would have both the means and the motive to do this. I wasn't the kind of guy who made enemies. I kept my head down at work, did my job, stayed out of office politics. But someone clearly wanted to destroy me, and they'd been planning it carefully for weeks if those forum posts were any indication. My phone rang and I jumped, nearly knocking over my untouched coffee. It was Victor finally calling back. I answered immediately, the words tumbling out before he could even say hello. Victor, something's happening. I got suspended from work. They think I stole data, but I didn't. Someone's setting me up, and I don't know who or why. There was a pause on the other end, and when Victor spoke, his voice sounded strange, strained. Cole, where are you right now? Something in his tone made me hesitate. Why? Just tell me where you are. I need to talk to you about something. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Victor was my best friend since college, the guy I'd trust with anything. But right now, something felt off about this conversation. What do you need to talk to me about? Another pause, longer this time. Cole, you need to trust me on this. Don't go home tonight. Don't go to Nina's. Just tell me where you are, and I'll come meet you. My mind raced, trying to make sense of his words. Why can't I go home? What's going on? Victor's voice dropped lower, like he was worried someone might overhear. Because there are people looking for you, and they're going to be watching your apartment. If you go there, they'll find you. I'm trying to help you, but you need to listen to me. I ended the call, my heart hammering in my chest. The certainty from this morning crashed back over me with renewed force. I'd known I wouldn't make it home tonight, and now I understood why. This wasn't just about losing my job over false accusations. This was something bigger, something dangerous. I was being hunted, and I didn't even know by whom or why. I grabbed my laptop and phone and walked quickly out of the coffee shop, looking over my shoulder to see if anyone was watching. The parking lot seemed normal, just regular people going about their day. But paranoia had taken root now, and every person felt like a potential threat. I got in my car and drove again, this time with no destination in mind. Just away from that coffee shop, away from anywhere someone might expect me to be. My phone rang again, Victor's name lighting up the screen. I didn't answer. If he was involved in whatever was happening, I couldn't trust him. If he wasn't involved but was being used somehow, talking to him might put both of us in danger. Either way, I needed to figure this out on my own. I pulled into a gas station and parked behind the building, trying to think through everything that had happened. The login irregularities started last Thursday, according to Leonard. The forum posts asking about hacking corporate networks started several weeks ago. Someone had been planning this for a while, gathering information, setting the stage. But why target me specifically? What had I done to make someone want to destroy my life like this? My phone buzzed with a text from Nina. Getting worried. You usually text by now. Everything okay? I wanted to call her, to hear her voice, to have someone tell me this was all going to be fine. But Victor's warning echoed in my head. Don't go to Nina's. They'll be watching. Who were they? And what did they want from me? I typed back a response, keeping it vague. Work emergency. Might be late tonight. Don't wait up. The lie tasted bitter, but I couldn't drag her into this. Not until I understood what was happening. Another text came through, this time from an unknown number. Cole, this is Glenn Fuller from Meridian Security. I need you to call me immediately. Do not ignore this message. I stared at the text, trying to decide if it was legitimate or another piece of whatever trap was closing around me. Before I could decide, my phone rang with a call from the same unknown number. I answered cautiously. Hello? Cole. Thank God. Glenn's voice sounded genuinely relieved. Listen to me very carefully. You're in danger. The investigation we started this morning uncovered something much bigger than simple data theft. We found evidence that someone has been systematically building a case against you for weeks, but it's not about the company files. Those were just the bait. What are you talking about? I asked, my mouth dry. The files that were accessed using your credentials contained information about a federal investigation. We're not just a data analytics company, Cole. Some of our clients are government agencies. Whoever used your access was looking at classified information related to an ongoing FBI operation, and they made sure it would look like you were the one trying to steal it. The world tilted sideways. This wasn't about corporate espionage. This was about federal crimes, the kind that carried prison sentences measured in decades. I didn't access those files, I said, hearing how weak my protest sounded. I know you didn't, Glenn said, surprising me. We've been doing deeper analysis on the access patterns. And the technical details don't match your normal behavior. Different typing speeds, different patterns of navigation through the system. Someone was using your credentials, but it wasn't you. The problem is, we're not the only ones who know about this. The FBI was notified this afternoon, and they're going to want to talk to you. But Cole, here's what you need to understand. Whoever set you up wants you to run. They want you to look guilty by disappearing. If you run, it confirms the narrative they've built. I leaned back against my car, feeling like the ground was shifting under my feet. Then what am I supposed to do? Come back to the office. Right now. We have FBI agents here who want to interview you, but they're willing to listen if you cooperate. If you run, they'll issue a warrant, and this gets much worse. But if you come in voluntarily, we might be able to sort this out before it destroys your life completely. I thought about Victor's warning. Don't go home. People are looking for you. Glenn was telling me to walk back into the building I'd been escorted out of just hours ago and talk to federal agents who thought I was a criminal. One of them was lying to me, or possibly both. How do I know I can trust you? I asked. Glenn was quiet for a moment. You don't. But I can tell you this. We pulled security footage from the parking garage. Last Thursday night at 11:40, someone accessed the building using a cloned badge. They were here for approximately 40 minutes in and out before the cleaning crew arrived. We're working on identifying them from the footage, but whoever it was knew exactly how to avoid the main cameras. That detail felt specific enough to be real, something they wouldn't make up just to lure me in. If you have footage of someone else, that proves it wasn't me. It suggests it wasn't you, Glenn corrected. But we need your cooperation to build that case. The longer you stay out there, the more it looks like you're avoiding accountability. Please, Cole, come back. Let us help you prove your innocence. I closed my eyes and tried to think through my options. Go back and potentially walk into arrest or worse. Keep running and confirm every suspicion against me. Try to go home and face whoever Victor claimed was watching my apartment. None of them felt like good choices. I need time to think, I said. How much time? Glenn asked. Because in about 30 minutes, the FBI is going to start actively looking for you, and that changes everything. I ended the call without answering, my mind racing. 30 minutes to decide what to do with the rest of my life. I pulled up the screenshots I'd taken of those forum posts and studied them again. Brennan C85 asking about corporate security, about covering digital tracks. The posts were public. Anyone could see them. Maybe that was the point. Create a public record of someone with my name researching how to commit the exact crime I was being accused of. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Glenn sending a follow-up. Cole, I'm attaching a photo from our security footage. This is the person who accessed the building Thursday night. Do you recognize them? The image loaded slowly over my phone's data connection. Grainy security camera footage showing a figure in dark clothes and a baseball cap pulled low. The angle wasn't great, and the resolution was worse, but something about the build and posture seemed familiar in a way I couldn't quite place. I zoomed in, studying every detail I could make out. The person was average height, maybe 5'9" or 5'10". They moved like someone who knew where they were going. No hesitation or uncertainty. In one frame, they'd turned slightly toward the camera, and I could just barely make out the side of their face. My blood went cold. I knew that profile. I'd seen it thousands of times over the past year. It was Nina. My girlfriend of 14 months, the person I'd been planning to move in with next month, was the one who'd accessed the building using my credentials. She was the one setting me up, destroying my life piece by piece. But why? I called Victor back immediately, and this time he answered on the first ring. Cole, where are you? It's Nina, I said, the words coming out harsh and broken. She's the one. I just saw security footage. She accessed the building last Thursday night using my credentials. She's setting me up for something, and I don't know why. Victor let out a long breath. I know. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Cole, Nina isn't who she said she was. Her real name is Nina Kasparov, and she's been under investigation by the FBI for the past 8 months. Industrial espionage, selling corporate secrets to foreign buyers. You were her way into Meridian Systems. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Every moment of the past year suddenly felt contaminated, recontextualized by this new terrible knowledge. Every date, every conversation, every time she'd asked casual questions about my work. All of it had been a lie. A long game to get access to classified information through my credentials. How long have you known? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 2 days, Victor said. The FBI contacted me Friday night. They've been building a case against her for months, and they knew she was involved with you. They wanted me to bring you in quietly, let them explain everything in a controlled setting. But when I tried calling you this morning, you didn't answer. Then I heard from a friend at Meridian that you'd been suspended. I realized she must have made her move, used your access to steal what she needed. Now she's going to let you take the fall while she disappears. I slumped against my car, every piece of my life crumbling around me. What am I supposed to do? The FBI wants to talk to you, but not to arrest you. They want your help catching her. Cole, you're a victim in this, but you're also the only person who might know where she'd go. You've spent the past year with her. You know her habits, her patterns, places she liked to go. They need that information to find her before she leaves the country. My mind went to Nina's apartment, the place I'd spent this past weekend painting walls and planning a future that never existed. She's probably already gone, I said. She planned this too carefully to stick around after pulling the trigger. Maybe, Victor agreed, but maybe not. The FBI raided her apartment 2 hours ago and found evidence she was there this morning. She's still in the city somewhere, and they're running out of time to find her before she makes it to an airport or border crossing. I thought about all the places Nina had taken me over the past year. Coffee shops she claimed to love, parks where we'd spent Sunday afternoons, that bookstore in the arts district where she could browse for hours. Had any of it been real, or was it all just part of the cover story? There's a cabin, I said slowly, the memory surfacing. She mentioned it once, said her family used to rent it when she was a kid. It's about 90 miles north near Lake Thornton. She said she always felt safe there. Victor relayed the information to someone on his end, and I heard muffled conversation in the background. They're sending units there now. Cole, you need to come in. Let them take your statement. Walk them through everything. This is your chance to clear your name. I drove back toward downtown, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. The feeling from this morning made perfect sense now. I'd known somehow that I wouldn't make it home that night, that everything was about to change. I just hadn't understood how completely my world would shatter. The Meridian building was lit up when I pulled into the parking garage. More cars than usual for this time of evening. I took the elevator up to the 14th floor, where Glenn was waiting in the lobby with 2 people in FBI windbreakers. They introduced themselves as Special Agents Novak and Lee, and their expressions were carefully neutral as they asked me to come with them to a conference room. The next 3 hours were a blur of questions and explanations. I walked them through every detail of my relationship with Nina, every conversation I could remember about work, every time she'd been near my laptop or could have seen me typing my password. I showed them the forum posts I'd found, the screenshots I'd taken. I gave them access to my phone, my computer, my email accounts, everything I had that might help prove my innocence and catch the person who'd used me so thoroughly. Agent Novak explained they'd been tracking Nina for months through a network of stolen corporate data. She worked for a syndicate that specialized in identifying vulnerable access points in security systems, usually through social engineering and relationship exploitation. I was her latest target, chosen because I worked at a company with valuable government contracts and appeared to be lonely and trusting enough to manipulate. The words stung, but they were true. I had been lonely before Nina. I'd been thrilled when she'd approached me at that coffee shop 14 months ago, charmed by her smile and her apparent interest in my boring life. I'd never questioned why someone like her would want to be with someone like me. I'd just been grateful. Agent Lee took a call around 9 and stepped out of the conference room. When she came back, her expression had changed to something almost triumphant. We got her. Units converged on that cabin 20 minutes ago. She was there with 2 other individuals, probably her handlers. All 3 are in custody. Relief washed over me so intensely I felt dizzy. It was over. The nightmare that had started with this morning's certainty was finally over. But even as I felt that relief, I knew the damage was done. My job was gone, my reputation was in tatters, and the past year of my life had been revealed as an elaborate lie. I'd been used and discarded, and even though I'd helped catch the person responsible, I'd never get that time back. Agent Novak stood up and extended her hand. Mr. Brennan, thank you for your cooperation. We'll need you to come down to the federal building tomorrow to make a formal statement, but for tonight, you're free to go. We'll be in touch about the prosecution. You'll likely need to testify at trial. I shook her hand, still feeling numb. What happens now? With my job? With the charges against me? The charges against you will be dropped once we file our report, she said. As for your job, that's between you and Meridian, but we'll be providing them with a full briefing about what happened. You were a victim of a sophisticated operation. That should count for something. Glenn walked me to the elevator when the agents were done. For what it's worth, I believed you this morning. The technical analysis made it clear someone else was using your account. I'm sorry you had to go through all of this. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The elevator ride down was quiet, and when I walked out to the parking garage, it was past 10 at night. I'd been right this morning. I hadn't made it home at my usual time, but I was going home now, to an empty apartment, to a life I'd have to rebuild from scratch. I called Victor from my car before starting the engine. He answered immediately, sounding relieved. Are you okay? I don't know, I said honestly. The FBI got her. She's in custody. But Victor, the past year of my life was a lie. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, none of it was real. How do I come back from that? Victor was quiet for a moment. One day at a time, man. You didn't do anything wrong. You're a good person who got targeted by someone who makes a living exploiting good people. That's not on you. I wanted to believe him, but the shame and humiliation felt too heavy to shake off. I should have known. There had to be signs I missed. Or she was just that good at lying, Victor countered. That's literally what she did for a living, Cole. Professional manipulation. You couldn't have known. We talked for a few more minutes before I finally started my car and drove home. The apartment felt strange when I walked in, like I was seeing it through new eyes. Nina had been here just yesterday, had stood in my kitchen making breakfast, had laughed at something on TV while curled up on my couch. Had any of those moments been real for her, or was it all just performance? I found small things she'd left behind over the months. A sweater in my closet, a toothbrush in my bathroom, a paperback book on my nightstand. Each item felt like evidence of the lie, and I gathered them all into a garbage bag, wanting them gone. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, I saw a photo of Nina in handcuffs being led out of a cabin by FBI agents. Below the image was a message from Agent Lee. Thought you'd want to see this. She's asking for a lawyer. It's really over. I stared at the photo for a long time. This was the woman I'd thought I might love, who I'd imagined a future with. But the person in that image was a stranger, someone whose real motivations and history I'd never known. The certainty from this morning had been right. I hadn't made it home as the same person. That version of Cole, the one who trusted easily and believed in what people showed him, was gone. What was left was someone harder, more suspicious, marked by the experience of being used so completely. I'd survived, but I'd been changed in ways I was only beginning to understand. I spent the next week giving statements to the FBI, meeting with lawyers, trying to salvage what was left of my reputation. Meridian offered me my job back with a formal apology, but I couldn't imagine walking into that building every day knowing what had happened there. I started applying to other companies instead, hoping for a fresh start somewhere that didn't carry the weight of this disaster. Nina's trial was scheduled for 6 months out. Agent Novak called to tell me I'd need to testify about our relationship, about how she'd gained access to my credentials, about the questions she'd asked that I'd answered innocently, not knowing I was being pumped for information. The thought of sitting in a courtroom and reliving all of it made me feel sick, but I'd agreed to cooperate. Through it all, I kept thinking about that moment in the elevator Monday morning, the inexplicable certainty that I wouldn't make it home that night, that everything was about to change. I still don't believe in premonitions or supernatural warnings. I think part of me had noticed small inconsistencies, tiny red flags that my conscious mind had dismissed, but my subconscious had been cataloging. The way Nina always steered conversations back to my work, her interest in my schedule and security protocols that seemed just slightly too specific, those little moments when her mask had slipped and I'd seen something calculating underneath before she'd smoothed it back into place. My brain had been trying to warn me that something was wrong, and it had manifested as that bone-deep certainty. Not magic, just pattern recognition operating below the level of conscious thought. Victor helped me move to a new apartment across town, somewhere Nina had never been. We spent a Saturday hauling boxes and furniture, and he didn't ask me how I was doing because the answer was obvious. I was surviving, barely, taking it day by day like he'd suggested. The nightmares were the worst part. I'd dream I was back in that elevator Monday morning, feeling that certainty wash over me, but in the dreams I knew what was coming and couldn't stop it. I'd watch helplessly as the day unfolded exactly as it had, powerless to change any of it. I'd wake up sweating and disoriented, checking my phone to make sure it was really over, that Nina was really in custody and couldn't hurt me anymore. 3 months after that terrible Monday, I started a new job at a smaller company across town. My new coworkers didn't know about what had happened at Meridian, and I didn't tell them. I kept my head down, did my work, and went home alone to my new apartment. The certainty from that morning never came back, but something else replaced it. A constant low-level vigilance, a suspicion of people's motives, a need to verify and double-check everything. I'd lost the ability to take things at face value, and I wasn't sure I'd ever get it back. 6 months after Nina's arrest, I sat in a federal courtroom and testified about our relationship. She sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, looking nothing like the woman who'd smiled at me over coffee and convinced me I'd found something real. Her lawyer tried to paint me as a willing participant, someone who'd known what was happening and helped, but the evidence was too strong. The forum posts using my name, the cloned badge access, the pattern of questions designed to extract information. It was clear I'd been a tool, not a conspirator. The jury convicted her on all counts. As she was led out of the courtroom, she looked at me one last time, and I saw something in her expression I couldn't read. Not remorse or apology, but maybe a kind of cold assessment. Even now, at the end, she was evaluating, calculating, looking for angles. That's who she really was under the performance, and I'd never seen it until too late. I walked out of the courthouse into bright afternoon sunshine, feeling like I could finally breathe again. It was really over now. The investigation, the trial, the constant anxiety about what would happen next. I was free to move forward, to build a new life that wasn't contaminated by her manipulation. Victor was waiting outside, having taken the afternoon off work to support me. He didn't say anything, just handed me a coffee from my favorite shop and gestured toward his car. We drove out to the coast and sat on the beach watching the waves, not talking much, just existing in the moment. "You did good in there," Victor said eventually. "Telling the truth, not letting her lawyer rattle you. I know it wasn't easy." I shrugged, digging my hands into the sand. None of this was easy, but at least it's done now. I can start trying to figure out who I am after all this. We stayed until the sun started setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Driving back to the city, I thought about that Monday morning 6 months ago, standing in the elevator with that terrible certainty. I'd known I wouldn't make it home that night, and I'd been right. But I had made it through to the other side, scarred and changed, but still standing. The person I'd been before Nina was gone, replaced by someone warier and more guarded. But maybe that wasn't entirely a bad thing. Maybe I'd needed to lose that naive trust to see the world more clearly, to protect myself better, to make smarter choices about who to let into my life. I started dating again eventually, though it took months before I was ready. First dates felt like interrogations now. Every question I asked designed to verify and validate, every answer analyzed for inconsistencies. It made forming connections harder, but it also meant I wouldn't be fooled again so easily. A year after that Monday morning, I was in a healthier place. New job, new apartment, new routines that didn't carry the weight of past trauma. I'd done therapy to work through the betrayal and trust issues. I'd reconnected with old friends and made some new ones. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again, built on foundation that felt more solid, because I'd survived having it destroyed once. I still thought about that moment in the elevator sometimes, that inexplicable certainty that everything was about to change, and I'd learned to trust those instincts better, to pay attention when something felt off, even if I couldn't articulate why. My subconscious had tried to warn me, and I'd dismissed it as anxiety. I wouldn't make that mistake again. The feeling never came back quite like that bone-deep knowledge of disaster approaching. But smaller versions did, little warning bells that helped me navigate a world that felt less safe than it had before. I learned to listen to them, to honor them, to take action instead of dismissing them as irrational fear. That Monday morning had broken me in some ways, but it had also taught me things I needed to know. That people lie, that trust has to be earned, not given freely, that sometimes your instincts know things your conscious mind doesn't want to accept. Hard lessons, but necessary ones for surviving in a world where not everyone has good intentions. I never saw Nina again after the trial. She was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, and her accomplices got similar terms. The FBI dismantled the espionage ring she'd been part of, arresting dozens of people across multiple countries. My case had been one piece of a much larger operation, and my cooperation had helped bring down the whole network. That felt like something, at least. Like the destruction of my life had served some purpose beyond just her enrichment. On the 2-year anniversary of that Monday, I woke up and got ready for work the same way I did every day. But standing in the bathroom brushing my teeth, I felt something shift inside me. Not certainty this time, but something gentler. A sense that I was okay now, that I'd healed enough to stop defining myself by what had happened. I was more than the guy who got manipulated by a spy. I was Cole Brennan, data analyst, friend, someone who'd survived something terrible and come out the other side. I drove to work and rode the elevator up to my floor, and this time there was no ominous wait, no foreboding. Just another day, ordinary and safe and mine. And maybe that was the real victory. Not just surviving the disaster, but reaching a point where disaster no longer defined me. I'd known that Monday morning that I wouldn't make it home that night, and I'd been right. But I'd found my way home eventually, to a version of myself that was stronger and wiser for having survived the journey. That had to count for something. That had to be enough. Appreciate you watching this far. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the next story.